What's up, guys?
It's Mundane Miracle Monday.
Yay.
So, how's your week been?
It's been slow.
Yeah,
But-
it has been so.
Not bad. Could be worse.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm so tired. I'm not sleeping very
Same.
well. Yeah. But it's been a good week or so for the podcast.
That's very true.
We're making
Thank you to
moves.
our new subscribers, new
Yeah.
listeners. Thanks
Shout
for
out.
Yeah.
So, I read no, I saw it on TikTok.
I read.
I saw on TikTok news coverage about a pastor in Ohio. He was arrested because he opened up his church as like a warming place, like for
warming station.
for like homeless people to stay,
Yeah.
and he got arrested for that.
Yeah.
Isn't that, what do you think about that?
I think that it just basically shows that this world, and America especially, is messed up.
Yeah.
And like when people actually, there's more people out there that try to help out and reach out than you probably think,
Yeah.
and they end up getting in trouble for it. This is just one that we've like heard of, you know.
Mhm.
This has probably happened before,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I think it's like it's a risk that he was willing to take.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think that pastor is awesome.
Yeah.
I
He was
think
just doing what he was called to do. Like, Jesus calls us to care for the widow and the orphan and
Yeah.
the marginalized and least of these.
yeah.
And I have some friends who pastored a church in Madison, Indiana, which is just across the river. I want to take you there someday.
Okay.
It's such a cute little, like, Gilmore Girls town. It's
I
so
love that.
cute. So anyway, they ran a church, and they would always open up, like, especially on super, super cold nights, they would always open up the church for, like, people to come and stay and get a hot meal for whatever they needed. So I wonder, like, what the difference is between something like that. Because they're still doing it. The pastor's changed. It's the Salvation Army, so it is rotating a lot. But I still follow them on Facebook, and the new pastors still, like, it was the same thing. Like, they posted about how it was open for, like, if somebody needed a warm place to come and stay, the church would be open.
I don't know. Maybe it was like a difference between like just a short period of time versus like a long period of time. I don't know, but I think it's crazy. Like, I really wonder who even reported it.
That's so true.
Like, do you think it was someone in the church who didn't like that there's like people that stay there?
Maybe.
Because a lot of times it is your own people that come for you. And like, because you know the people staying there were not going to report it.
No.
So it's like, who even was like the loser that was like, let me call the cops on them, you know?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's such a good point. Like, why? What do you have against, like, the church helping homeless people? I mean, a lot of, like, people out in the world criticize the church for not doing enough, and then when we try to do something, it gets shut down.
For real. But honestly, that should lead the way for other people, other pastors, other
Yeah.
churches, because it is a shame that like a huge building is just empty the whole
Yeah.
rest of the week. Like, I know sometimes churches have like meetings on Mondays and like whatever here and there, but there's many different rooms.
Yeah.
There's so much space, and overnight there's nothing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it is pretty crazy that it's just like you use it Sunday and Wednesday, and then that's that.
Yeah.
And they lock the doors, like, you know, in movies it'd always be like where you could walk right into the
Yes.
church.
Yes.
A lot of Catholic churches are like that. I
Yeah.
don't know about as much now, but I remember when I was younger, my dad would always be like, because he grew up in Catholic church when he was young, he would always take us into Catholic churches when they were closed, because he knew they always had their doors open.
Yeah.
And just to like go in there, like, just as a cool thing, not to like vandalize the place, you know? And
Come on, kids, let's go to the Catholic church and vandalize. Not evangelize.
I was gonna say that. But yeah, and I feel like he did that at least twice. And this one time there happened to be like people in there, and they came around from the back, like just like maybe like the priest and somebody, or like a random people. I don't know who they were. And like my first initial thought was run. Or hide under the pews, because they hadn't seen us yet. It was dark in there. And then so my dad was like, no, let's just talk to them.
Yeah.
And they kind of seemed like a little freaked out, but like nothing happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's how it used to be. You would like, because like some people do feel the need to go to church to pray and stuff,
Right.
like in movies, and some people feel the need, like that should be a place that you feel like you can go to, you know? And now it's like, nope, the doors are locked because we have so many valuable items that we care about more than you, and we can't just simply like lock them up in a room or anything. Like, but I know there is a lot of churches out there at the same time that they do a lot for people.
Yeah.
And it's just not talked about. It's not put on like a pedestal, on like, it's not put on YouTube. It's not put on the news.
Because they don't do it for publicity.
Yeah. There's many churches that they'll help you pay your bills.
Yeah.
They'll give you checks. They'll give you cash. They'll give you food. They have food pantries. They have so many resources. They have counseling. They have many different things, different options, and different ways to help people. So sometimes I do think that people are a little too harsh and don't really know about a lot of churches, because it's like there still are people out there that are trying to help. And they, not just the people in their congregation, but also people outside, and they'll go out and they'll feed people and like whatever. And it's just like, people only report things for the most part when it's bad. But when it's a positive thing, it's just like if you go to a restaurant, do you leave a review if it was good? Not normally. But if it was bad?
Except for at Asiana, when the guy comes around and says, here's the QR code, please leave a 5-star review. Do you know your server's name? How was your food? It was good, right? Please leave a 5-star review.
Literally. And it's like, and he made us like promise that we would too. And we're like, yeah, I promise. I didn't do it. Oops.
I did.
But yeah. And then if you have a negative experience, you run to the reviews and be like, this place sucks. They have the worst customer service.
Like when that guy touched my hair at Taco Bell.
Yeah. That was well deserved. Yeah. But yeah, it just goes to show that like the good things are not as much talked about, not as much praised. And also a lot of churches do want to keep stuff like low key because they aren't doing it for praise.
Right.
They're doing it for God and God only. So we can't just put all churches into one category. Like that drives me insane. All churches and all Christians all in one category. They're all terrible. They do nothing for people. They do nothing for homeless people. Nothing. And that's just really unfair, because there's many churches out there that do good too.
I think that we could step it up.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think we could. I think when I lived in California, I loved my church in California, and they did so much community outreach and just like relationship building with other churches in the area, like schools in the area, just everything. And one of the things that they did was every week they would like take a big box truck out and like feed the community. But it was like it wasn't like sandwiches and stuff. It was like a mobile food pantry, essentially. It was like people could come and get like fresh produce and like stuff that you can't get at a normal food pantry.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool. They had a lot of different like ministries like that. And even like the church that I go to now, we did over like leading up to Thanksgiving, we did like a canned food drive thing, and people brought in so many canned goods. Like I was shocked, because I don't know, I haven't seen that in a long time. And then there was like the angel tree, like for all the kids.
Yeah.
And literally the first week that the angel tree stuff was up, it was all gone. Like I didn't even get a kid because I didn't get to the tree in time. And then the next week they put more kids out, and those were gone immediately.
Oh my gosh.
Like people were really excited to do that. And
that's
then
awesome.
There was something else, like back to school stuff. They had like a backpack drive where you would like fill backpacks with like school supplies and stuff. And that was like super successful. And there was yeah, there's just there's a lot of stuff that people do and a lot of partnerships that happen. I think that's the key is partnering. You as a church don't have to do it necessarily, but you can partner with other people in the community who already have an established thing going on and support them. And Angel Tree, that's a well-known thing that people know about.
Yeah.
And so for you as a church to 2 weeks in a row to sell out basically the Angel Tree stuff, that was so cool to see. Because a lot of the churches that I've been to before have been please come and get your Angel Tree kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that there are good things, but I think that I don't know, sometimes non-Christian organizations or even other religious
Organization.
yeah, kind of outshine us in that way, because there are a lot of nonprofits that are helping the communities that are not Christian based.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that especially with the church shelter situation in the winter time, especially I know that people are going to say or I know one of the arguments is that it takes a lot of resources. You have to have a lot of people to be there to staff it or to supervise or whatever. And then if you're going to give food, you have to have that provided somehow. But I think that would be such a cool and beautiful thing for local churches to partner together. Not even just one church doing it, but if you could get 3 or 4 churches in an area to come together and be okay, your congregation is in charge of the shelter this week, and then yours is in charge next week, and
The problem is a lot of churches are in competition.
yeah, that's true.
And that's also a shame.
Yeah, it is. That's so true. But I mean,
Especially if they're different denominations.
yeah, and that's something that I've really been
That's disgusting, honestly.
something that I've been really learning about this past year is what the denominational differences. And it's crazy because when you grow up, especially I spent a lot of time as a Baptist, and when you're Baptist, it's every other denomination is going to hell. If you're not Baptist, you're not a Christian. And I never believed that because I didn't grow up Baptist to begin with, and so I was just that's a weird thing to think. But I didn't really fully understand the denominational divide until I became an adult, and I don't know, it just seems silly to me. It just is a little silly to me.
I saw it when I was in youth group, and my youth pastor literally didn't like that I was going to a different church some Wednesday nights. And the church across the street, one time we had a conjoined event.
Mm-hmm.
It was a high school. Literally 2 rivalry high schools coming together. Everyone of that youth group stayed to their self, and everyone in our youth group stayed to their self. Me and Erica actually knew people in that other youth group, so we were probably the only ones that talked to other people. But it was just nothing. It was weird, and it was not the way it's supposed to be at all. And so I experienced that years ago, because it was just weird. I don't know why. Why would you ever be in competition of?
Yeah.
Even one time we were on this beach trip with a different church. I think it was a Baptist church. And me and Erica were very strong in our beliefs.
Yeah.
And so one time, I believe it was about speaking in tongues or something. Erica was
it always comes back to speaking in tongues.
I know. Erica was basically telling the youth pastor that basically it's a good thing, and it's whatever. She was just talking highly of speaking in tongues, and he got mad and freaked out on her in front of all the other youth, and was freaking out about it and how wrong it is and how it's not for today. Yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff just of people about their denominations, about their their way of belief, their whatever. Like, you go to a different church on a Sunday and they're like, what are you doing? Why didn't you come to our church?
Yeah.
Because we're all the body, like, we are all the church.
Yeah.
That's like, there should never be a divide. Like,
Yeah.
that's so weird to me. That's so weird to me.
Yeah, like, if your theology is causing you to not be able to have communion with other believers with different theology, like, that's pride.
Yep.
Because I mean, I think that it's so important to, like, well, there's so much grace for that, and there's so much, like, there are so many secondary issues theologically that are like, okay, like, I don't know, it's just like, okay, if you don't believe that, like, I still think you're saved.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna start a fight with you over it. I'm
Someone
gonna listen.
in my youth group.
Yeah. Like, I love to listen to people talk about, like, their ideas and, like, how they came to their conclusions. And, like, I don't know, you just approach things with a curiosity instead of condemnation or thinking, like, their ideas are going to be threatening to me. Like, if that's the case, then maybe you're not as strong in your beliefs as you think.
Yeah. And to, like, be a grown man and get mad at youth girls for believing in speaking in tongues, or for not coming to your youth group that night, or anything.
And, like, that's just not good discipleship.
No.
Because that's...
And it's, like, controlling as well, and it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
It's really weird.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. So how many denominations do you think you visited in your lifetime?
Oh my gosh. I've been to Catholic Church, I've been to Baptist Church, Pentecostal, non-denominational. I've been to a Roman, like a Orthodox, Roman Orthodox.
Eastern Orthodox?
I don't know, some type of Orthodox church where, like, it's kind of like Catholics, but, like, even more Orthodox, whatever. I've been to Lutheran. I think I've probably been to Presbyterian. There's probably a couple more.
Yeah, I'm not as seasoned as you, because I wasn't allowed to go to other churches. And so I grew up in the Salvation Army, and then we went to, like, my grandparents, my dad's parents were Dutch Reformed, and so if we visited them, we would go to their Dutch Reformed church. And then I was, like, Baptist. My dad was a Baptist pastor, and then non-denom. A couple years ago, I went to Presbyterian church for the first time, and I don't think I had ever been to, like, a liturgical church before. Yeah. And, well, except for the Dutch Reformed church, but that was, like, different. And so it was like, coming out of Baptist non-denom, which is just Baptist disguised. It was I didn't want to go to church for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I was burnt out. I was hurt. It was just a lot. There was a lot of things to unpack, a lot of trauma to process, so much. And so I went to this Presbyterian church with Laura and Sarah, and it was so, like, nice to experience something so different than anything that I had grown up going to. There was, like, liturgies, and oh my gosh, I remember the first time I was there, they were like, it was, like, perfect for somebody with anxiety, because they were like, somebody stood up at the very beginning of the service, and they were like, if you're new here, I'm just going to orient you a little bit. So if you go right out these doors, straight ahead, there's the bathrooms. And if you go out these doors and then a little bit to the left is the commons, and that's where the coffee is. And, like, you're welcome to go there. And then, like, just explained where everything was. And I felt so much better, because I was like, wow, where in a church are you going to, like, tell somebody where the bathroom is from the pulpit? Like,
yeah. And normally they say, if you're new here, raise your hand. Like, I'm not raising my hand.
No. Even one time I was at a church and I didn't know where the bathroom was. And I was like, there was a mom in the foyer, like, with her baby. And I was like, oh, I can ask a mom where the bathroom is. No problem. And I asked her, I was like, could you tell me where the bathroom is? And she was like, it's over there. And I was like, okay, thanks. I still couldn't find it.
It's over there, girl, where?
Girl, where? And, like, a mom?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was crazy to me. But, yeah, anyway, I just really enjoyed that.
You've never been to a Pentecostal church?
Well, I went to Bethel once.
Oh, okay. Then yeah.
Yeah, that was actually super fun to go to
Yeah.
Bethel. That was what I wanted to do for my birthday when we lived in when I lived in California. We went up there like my birthday weekend, and it wasn't like that far. It was like maybe an hour and a half. And it was so crowded. It was so crowded. And
I've been to Cowboy Church too.
oh my gosh, what's that?
Sorry, it just hit me. It's literally Cowboy Church. Everyone goes dressed in cowboy attire. It's like country. Like the one I went to was literally in a barn. And
In a barn?
Yeah. In some places they probably like ride their horses and stuff to it, but I don't know, not the one I went to, but yeah, everyone dresses up. Like that's just their normal thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not like dress up. It's like everyone's wearing cowboy hats and boots and like country attire, the pastor and everything, and it's just like country and like interesting. Yeah.
Sounds scary to me.
Sorry. Now what were you saying?
I was just talking
Just
about my
remembered.
experience at Bethel. It was just like, it was really crowded. I remember that. And Chris Valaton spoke, and I think about his sermon a lot. It was actually, he's not like my favorite.
Yeah.
But it was actually a very good sermon about like community outreach, actually,
Oh wow.
and prayer and everything. It was really good. But yeah, I think that's the only like Pentecostal church that I've been to but like of all the Pentecostal churches to go to, I mean, Bethel.
Yeah. I feel like I've been to more extreme than that.
Oh yeah,
probably.
for sure.
So, yeah, maybe we'll have to go to one day together.
Yeah.
We'll have to share with you guys how it goes.
I'm scared. But yeah, I think that like helped me a lot going to like that Presbyterian church. I only went a few times with them, but like that helped me so much to just, it was good to get a different perspective, see how different people like do church.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like, you know how sometimes you walk into a church and it's just that feeling.
No, yeah. I know that 100%.
It didn't feel like that.
Oh, that's
And it was like
actually
so
great.
weird. But yeah, I mean, even Laura, like, well, she loves her church, and it's the same. It was the same experience for her because she grew up Baptist too, and it was like very, very different from what she was used to. And so it's been a really good change. And I think that's, Beth Moore even talks about that, like, because she's going to some kind of Reformed church, and she was Southern Baptist forever. And she talks about how healing it's been to like just be in a different environment and to learn to appreciate like liturgical prayers, and how like that is so looked down upon in the Baptist church, and how it's like that's cheating and that's like whatever. But really it's like such a cool experience to be able to like be joining in prayer with people past and present who have prayed these same prayers, and like I don't know, it's just such a cool, different experience, and that really helped me get back into church.
That's so different from Pentecostal too, because like the Lord's Prayer is the Lord's Prayer, you know?
Yeah.
There's one,
Yeah.
the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
But like growing up Pentecostal, kind of everything is over dramatized and over emotional. So it's like your prayers have to be never ending, always adding to them, always coming up with words, different things to say. And like you really learn, like I didn't learn this until like probably somewhere in my 20s, that like it's okay if it's just simple. It's okay if you just pray the Lord's Prayer. If you look at prayers in the Bible, there's a lot of them that are very simple. And
they're all different.
Yeah, they're all different, but you don't have to like go on this whole long spiel unless you want to.
Right.
But
sometimes I do.
For it to be like powerful or not, or like whatever or not, or faith-filled, like
for God to hear you.
God literally doesn't even need you to speak to him to know what your heart is saying. It's like
the Holy Spirit intercedes for us with groans. If we have no words to speak.
Yeah. So like it doesn't matter how like over the top your prayers are, they're not more heard.
Right.
Because
you're louder.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's like because liturgical prayers and like stuff like that it's very calm and quiet and just like it's very like intentional though. And I think that that's something that, not to like dog on Pentecostals, like I rock with those guys most of the time.
I'll dog on them because I was one for so long.
Yeah, true. But I think that's like a really big difference between the liturgical practice and like Pentecostal prayers, is that liturgical is very intentional and very thought through because it's all written out. And so it's very like you're saying what you mean.
Yeah.
Instead of just filling the silence. And part of me wonders, you know how like there were the Pharisees, I think, who were praying and they were saying, "Oh, thank you God that I'm not like that person over there." And like they're praying like really loud and just very like ugh. And Jesus was like, "Don't pray like them. Go into your prayer closet and pray."
Yeah.
I think that Pentecostals can sometimes be like that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that.
But yeah, I mean, I think that that's just something that to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely.
And like if you're having a hard time like getting comfortable again in church, because I think that a lot of us, especially during COVID, like we became comfortable not going to church. And it was really hard. It was really hard for me to start going to church again. I missed my California church so much. I loved that place. So it was hard to find, when I moved back, it was hard to find like something that was going to fill that.
Yeah.
And then it was just so hard and it took so long, and I gave up for a long time because it was like, I don't know, it was just really hard, and I was really sad, and I was really like going through so much. And then once you start, like, it's like you're pulling a thread. Once you start unraveling, like, oh, why do I feel this way? Like, about how this person was treated in the church. Then you start pulling on that, and then you're like, oh, why do I feel this way about this? Why do I feel this way about this? And it's like, oh, wait, actually, a lot of what I experienced in the church was not good, and it was not a representation of Jesus. And that was really hard. And sometimes it's still hard to go to church. Like, I'm not going to act like I just absolutely love going to church now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is hard, but I think that there is a beauty in like being a part of a local body, and there's a vulnerability there too. And I'm taking this trauma class and the first week of the trauma class, the teacher said, pain happens in relationship, and the only way to heal pain is community. Because if you are withdrawn, if you just like draw into yourself,
secluded and alone.
Yes, that's a different kind of pain.
Yeah.
So either way, like you're going to experience pain and hurt. There's a trauma therapist, and he says the same thing, something about trauma blocks love and love heals trauma. And like that's real. It's really hard to like go from that place of pain to like being able to expose yourself again to like going to the places that cause you pain or that have caused you pain in the past. And there are still so many times that I get like anxiety triggered, and like I have left church so many times just crying because it's been such a heavy and hard experience.
Yeah.
But I think with like consistency and just like, I don't know, it's part of that sounds bad because it's like, oh, you're just exposing yourself to this trauma over and over and over. But I don't think it's that. I think that it's, I have to remind my body, because it's really like a physical reaction.
Yeah.
And I have to remind my body that like, I'm okay. Like I'm not in danger. I'm not in danger.
That's very true.
It's so hard. But I mean, sometimes it's so good to get in the car and just cry all the way home. Like sometimes that's very therapeutic.
Done that many times, not just after church, just in general.
Just in general. And that sometimes you do just need that emotional release after like being so tense for so long. I don't do that as much anymore. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's important and helpful to be connected to a local body. I think that it's...
But only if you're connected.
Yeah.
Because you can go to a church and feel like you're not getting anything from it, that you aren't connected with the people, even theologically, the pastor. You don't really talk to anyone. You don't really have community there. And you're just going because, like, your family goes there or because you think you need to be in a church. But if it's not actually helping you grow then it's okay to leave.
Take a break.
Yeah. And search out different places, or if you're like me and you have a favorite pastor that's all the way in California, across the country, you can watch the live streams and you can watch their videos and you can do that. And then there's other people who you can come together with in community and have Bible studies and have talks and have prayer and everything. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, especially if you just don't feel at home anywhere in the moment.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be just so exhausting to try to find a church. And I mean, so I listened to Jackie and Preston Perry have a couple of really good podcast episodes on church and like church hurt, healing from church hurt, should you be in church? And their most recent one, they talked about like how they find it really helpful to be like walking with other believers in a way like that's an everyday thing. Like it's not just
on Sundays.
Yeah. And like it adds to like it brings more legitimacy to the Sunday, because then they're like, I am seeing you live this out.
It's
and
more
I know,
real.
Yeah. I know that you're like actively living what you preach and like all of this stuff. And I think I had never thought about that before, but that's so true. And it is like, sometimes you have to like, people don't always approach you. For me personally, I am not approachable. People don't approach me. I think I look scary. Like if I'm just, because I'm anxious. And so I give off the don't come to me. And like there are other people who, like Catherine just draws people in because she has a type of energy that's like, come talk to me. Come be my best friend. And oh my gosh, sometimes that's so hard to like not have that type of energy, because then you have to put in so much more work. Well, I don't know if it's more work, but you have to put in very different work to like get up the courage to approach other people, and like, oh, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
So like at my California church, that was really hard. I was going there for a long time before I made any connections. And the only reason that I made connections was because I like accidentally talked to the youth pastor, which is so funny to like think about. But this is actually one of my favorite stories, like church stories ever. We had a worship night every Thursday, and I went one time just totally by myself. I like didn't want to go, but I also was like, if I don't go, like I might die. And like, I don't say that to be dramatic. Like that was the reality of the situation in that moment. And so I went, and I was like so anxious and so depressed. I was just really having a hard time. And there weren't a lot of people that night. There was nobody in the foyer except for the youth pastor, who like I knew who he was because he would get up and do announcements and stuff on Sundays. And I had been going there for like a while at that point. And so I walked in, and he was like opening the doors or something, and he was like, hey. I said, hey. And he said, have we met? And I said, no. And he was like, I'm the youth pastor. And he introduced himself, and I was like, yeah, I know. And he was like, how long? He said, what brought you to Pursuit Night? And I said, oh, I come here. I was so awkward.
I come here.
He was like, do you come on Sundays too? And I said, yeah. And he was like, how long have you been coming here? And I said, like a year. And he was like, and we've never met? And I was like, no. And he was like, do you like know anybody? And I was like, not really. And so he was just like, oh, well, like, nice to meet you. Like, that was just basically it. And then, so I went in and I sat down by myself in like the back. And during the service, like during the worship set, the pastor's wife got up, and she was like praying, and she said, she like asked if anybody in the church like needed prayer. And she was like, you did nothing, like you don't have to do anything, just raise your hand if you need prayer so that I can pray for you. And so I raised my hand, and just like maybe 3 or 4 other people raised their hands. And she was like, oh, okay. And so she prayed for a second, and then she was like, I'm just going to have you guys come down because there's not very many of you. And this was like in the midst of COVID. So she was like, we can social distance because there's just not very many of you. So just come up to the front and like stand 6 feet apart. And I was like, she said we didn't have to do anything. And that's why I raised my hand. Like, I did not want to go to the front. Like, how embarrassing. I don't know any of these people. But I did it anyway. I was like, it's just time to be brave. And so I went to the front, and there were like a couple of people who were like known in the church who came forward who were like battling different sicknesses and financial problems and stuff like that. And so they like prayed over those people. And then the youth pastor, like, he kept like looking at me, you know, when you can tell when somebody is like about to say something to you.
Yeah.
I was getting that vibe, and I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah. And so he took the microphone and he was like, I don't know you. I literally just met you in the hallway earlier. And he was like, but I think that I have a word from the Lord for you. And I was like, oh no, oh no,
Oh
oh
my
no. And like, that's always so scary. So he said, God sees you in your loneliness, and he hears your prayers, and he's not leaving you. And you haven't been abandoned. And that, I just wept, because that's why I went there, because I was so lonely. And in the midst of COVID, like, a lot of people were experiencing that deep sadness and loneliness. And he didn't know me. He had no idea of my circumstances, nothing. And so I was just like crying, and the pastor's wife came over and was praying over me. And after the service was over, he came up to me and he was like, so, did that like mean anything to you? Like, and I was like, yeah, you didn't see me just crying my eyes out when you said it. And he was like, well, you just never know. He was like, sometimes you just have to like step out in faith and hope that like what you're hearing is from God. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And then he asked me, he was like, so what's your background? And I was like, I was a youth pastor's kid. And he was like, amazing. And he was like, are you in a small group? And I was like, yeah, I've been like, we've only met once, but yes, I do have a small group. And he was like, okay, great. Are you like serving on any teams? And I was like, no. And he was like, we got to get you plugged in. Do you want to help with youth? And I was like, okay. And so then I was a middle school youth leader, and from that point on, I was at church like 4 days a week.
Wow.
And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Wow.
And I got so plugged in, and I just started saying yes to everything. Like, I met with him a couple days later. He was like, he asked me if I would come to lunch, or not lunch, but just like come to the church to get coffee, and meet with him, just so he could like get to know me. He added me to a group chat with him and his wife, and his wife wasn't there that night, but he was like, he like added me and was like, Rachel, this is Mariah. And she was like, nice to meet you. She was the best too. And so I met with him, and he was like, a bunch of us are going to the beach on Saturday. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure. Because I was just like, this, like, it was so clearly like from God that like I was connecting with these people.
It was so intentional.
So intentional. And it was after so long of like not knowing people, and then suddenly like I had this like opening, and it was at a time when I was like literally gonna die if I didn't meet people. And so I went to the beach with them, and it was so fun, such a fun experience. And I met a bunch of people, and everybody was so nice and welcoming, and just like, I just loved it there.
Oh.
And then I like, was a youth leader, and then it was just such a good, it didn't last very long, because then I moved home, but it was such a good experience. And that's such a good example of like, I had to really put myself out there, and like go out on a limb and be like, okay, like I'm going to really make myself extremely vulnerable, and like be in a position where I could potentially like make a fool out of myself. But I was so desperate. I just had to do it. And I think that that's like a good example of, if you don't have that personality where people are drawn to you, like you kind of just have to make those connections yourself. Just like when I joined the small group that I'm in now, and I went all by myself, not knowing a single person in that small group. And I just walked in the house and I was like, here I am.
Yeah, I'm terrified at the thought of ever doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm outgoing.
Yeah.
You're more of like an introvert.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's really hard, but it's like very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like, especially if you've been hurt by that in the past, like if you've been hurt by being vulnerable with somebody, if you've been hurt by like being close with people in the church who turn out to be like not what you thought, or like you trusted them, like whatever, that just makes everything so much harder. And you're always thinking about that, and you're like, what if that happens again? And I think you have to be like at a certain level of desperation for both like community and I don't know what it is. Like I was desperate for community, and I was also like desperate for people to like speak into my life, people for like who I could rely on and like knew that they would give me like wise biblical counsel.
Yeah.
People to just like walk alongside that were like-minded. And so I think in both of those situations, like God really provided that for me. And it's still like, it's really hard to go to church sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that there's like such a benefit if you can get over the anxiety of it. I mean, and it's not just like getting over it. Like you have to find the right place. You have to like, there's a lot of like working up to it. And there's a lot of healing that I had to do. I was in therapy for a long time. I'm still in therapy, but I was in therapy for a long time before I tried church again. So when I joined my small group, my therapist, I told her, I was like, so I'm going to small group tomorrow. And she was like, what? She was like so shocked, and she was so proud of me. And yeah, anyways, that's definitely just like a long journey.
Yeah. So where do you feel like you're at now, like denomination wise? Obviously you might not have a specific one, but just explain what you...
Yeah, I think I go to an E-free church.
What is that?
I'm not really sure.
Oh.
It's evangelical free, which was really big in the 90s. I honestly didn't know that they were still around. But I don't know. I think I really... I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, you can just like explain like what you believe. You don't have to choose like a specific denomination, I guess. Then just like where you lie in between the denominations. Like not a specific one.
I would definitely say that I lean definitely more toward Arminianism than Calvinism. In fact, I am an Arminian. I have just decided in this moment. So, like, I loved Reformed churches because of their slow, easygoing, laid-back type of service. But I don't think... I'm not Reformed. I'm not, like, a Reformed person. I mean... By the grace of God, I have been reformed, but not theologically, I'm not reformed. Something that I'm like unraveling is my view of the end times, because there are so many views, and I didn't know that until like this past year, that there were like so many differing, well, there's like four main views of like the end times and like stuff like that, which is like not a big, it's not a determining doctrine. But I think that's just fascinating to learn about and unravel, especially as somebody who grew up on Left Behind. What would you say? How would you answer that question?
Well, I don't have any like specific denomination or anything, but I just lean more towards like biblical truth. Right. And I still believe in healing. I believe in the gifts of the Spirit and everything, but I don't see it the way I used to see it.
Sure.
And yeah, I believe in it, and I know that God can do and will do whatever and anything that he says in his word. And yeah, but I think we have to take everything back to the Bible and test it against scripture. And I think that we have to not lean on emotion or feeling, and not base our spirituality on what emotion we're feeling in that moment. I don't know. So it's just really about my beliefs and things for me, not really about a denomination. So it's kind of just like, if I go to a church I don't really care what they say the denomination is.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to hear them speak from scripture more than I hear them make jokes or
Right.
hear them talk about even like works of the spirit.
Mhm.
Like I want to hear more about the biblical truths
Mm-hmm.
instead of just like
Stories.
And yeah, and then like I love worship,
Yeah.
but I also know that like there's no need for like so many lights and fog machines. For me it's just about like those beliefs and those like things that I'm looking for. It's not about a denomination, so I don't really know where it lies. It's somewhere between Baptist and Pentecostal, I guess, because
that's so funny because that's literally the like range.
yeah, it is. Need the biblical truth, but we also need the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
We don't need too much of over dramatics and emotions, but we also do need to be led and guided by the Holy Spirit, and so
Yeah, I think that's an important balance, and it's a really hard balance to find in a lot of churches.
it is. It really is. It's weird how it's actually, you would think it probably sounds very simple,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Yeah. Do you feel like do you feel like you would ever commit to a body?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Do you does Gary want to be a pastor?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I mean, ultimately, like, he wants to
Yeah.
he wants to preach.
How do you think you would feel if you were a pastor's wife?
I don't know, but it's a funny thing because
isn't it?
my sister Erica, she always said, "I'll never be a military wife, never be a military girlfriend, whatever." She's
Now look
with
at
a
her.
military man.
Embarrassing.
I said, yeah. I said, I never want to be a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
Mm,
Here
you
you
know,
are.
Here I am. I mean, not yet. So
Yeah. He can still change his mind. I recently saw somebody saying that during their pastoral interview for a church, they asked about his wife, and his response was, "My wife is my wife, and her primary job is to raise our children, and she is not the church secretary. She's not the children's minister. Like, she's not gonna be having any of those like titles, unless she's like an employee of the church."
yeah, setting
And
those boundaries.
Yeah. And he was hired. I think that that's a really like important thing to distinguish from the beginning, because we were church planters, so we didn't really have that luxury. And so everything fell on all of us. Like Ariel and I were the worship team. Ariel and my dad and I were the worship team. And my mom was the
Everything else.
My dad was the pastor and the youth pastor. Like, yeah, it was a lot. And my mom and I just switched off every Sunday doing nursery because nobody else would do it. So I think you just have to like be sure, you and your husband have to be sure about like where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
With that type of stuff.
That's true. Sounds like a lot,
It is a lot.
but God calls us to a lot.
That's true.
Well, what was your mundane miracle of the week?
Mine was honestly getting my car cleaned out today.
That's mine too.
That was honestly all thanks to you. I would have never done it if it was just by myself. But now that it's done, it feels so... I haven't even driven it, but it feels so good knowing that it's done.
Literally. And I've been putting that off for so long.
So long.
I don't even know the last time I vacuumed out my car.
Yeah.
And I just took it to the car wash the other day, so got the
Yeah.
outside done, got the inside done, vacuumed, we cleaned, and your car smelled really good afterwards.
Thanks.
So I knew it was clean. Yours actually cleaned up very, very well.
Yeah.
I guess 'cause it's not black. Like
Yeah.
my mats need to be like seriously scrubbed and everything.
I did scrub my mats.
Yeah.
I like... because there was coffee spilled on them.
Yours are carpet?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I like sprayed them with that all-purpose spray and just let it soak for a little while, and then I came and scrubbed, and it smelled so bad getting that coffee out.
Yeah.
But it's clean now.
Yeah. I conditioned the leather seats and everything, and I was like, wow, this is nice. But then it rained, and I kept getting rain in there. I was like, wow, really?
It's annoying.
And then I stepped in this big old mud pile when I was delivering an order, and
You got your mats all muddy again.
yeah. but I almost fell in the mud.
Oh my
Because it was like that smushy and mushy
Yes.
mud, and like where it feels like sinking sand and your
Yes.
foot gets like stuck for a second, and like I almost slipped, and if I would have fell in that mud, I would have had to get in the car with mud all over me after just cleaning it. So that's also a mundane miracle that I
that you
didn't
didn't
fall in the
fall.
mud.
Oh my gosh, how funny would that have been though
Mm.
for me?
Yeah, honestly.
You would have come home and I would have
would've
texted you. I would have texted you about the oat milk, and you would have been like, "No, girl, I'm not getting it."
I literally pictured that in my head when you said, "Can you get oat milk?" I said, "What if I had mud all over me? I would have to tell her I can't go into the store."
Oh
That is
my
so
gosh.
funny.
Well,
Thanks for listening, guys.
see you next week.